Welcome to Lincoln City Library's Adult Summer Reading Program. I'm Marcy Graybill, the Service Supervisor at South Branch. Recently I was talking to a friend and she asked me to find some funny or cheerful books for her. It's not the summer most of us have expected, and she wanted something to take her mind off the serious news of the day. So I decided maybe others feel the same way. My favorite genre is mystery, so I'll be discussing 15 mysteries that are funny and have a good ending. Many of these are part of a series, and sometimes the library doesn't own all the books. I've tried to either choose the first in the series or the earliest book in the series we own. I hope you enjoy them as much as I have. Needled to Death, a Helping Hands Mystery by Annelise Ryan. This is the first in a fairly new series. Hildy Schneider is a mental health professional working in the ER at the Sorensen General Hospital. She helps clients who are brought into the hospital who are suffering from addiction or mental illness. She also hosts a grief support group. When a member of her group can't let go of the idea her son was murdered, Hildy begins to look into the situation. She starts to see some anomalies. The victim was thought to be a drug addict who just overdosed, but Hildy doesn't think so. With the mom's permission, she starts asking questions and eventually gains access to the victim's computer. With the help of Detective Bob Richmond and her therapy dog Roscoe, Hildy doesn't stop until she finds all the answers. This is a spin-off of Ryan's other series featuring Maddie Winston, a former nurse and current deputy coroner in Sorensen. With a cast of odd characters, Hildy is not so normal herself. She had a rough childhood and still finds that she pockets food items that don't belong to her. Overall, this book has humor and a great mystery. I read the original series and loved it, so I had high hopes for this one, and I wasn't disappointed. There is a second book in the series coming out this year called Night Shift. Cake and Punishment by Maymee Bell. Sophia Cummings comes home to Rumford, Kentucky to mend her broken heart. A professional pastry chef, she worked with her boyfriend in New York City until she found out he was cheating. Once home, Sophia is soon asked to create an old friend's wedding cake. With permission to use the country club's kitchen to bake in, she has her plans made. But it's not long before Sophia finds the head chef has been killed with a brand new frying pan. She's pretty sure that unseasoned pan is not Emile's, so she shares her expertise with the very attractive sheriff. When the director of the country club and Sophia's mentor, Evelyn Moss, is the main suspect, Sophia can't resist starting to investigate on her own. This is a pleasant mystery, not too gory, some swear words, some funny parts, but overall a light book that keeps you entertained. I enjoyed the southern setting, and the characters are believable. And of course, there are recipes at the end of the book, and that doesn't hurt at all. Death by the Dozen by Jenn Mckinlay. This is the third in the series, but they don't need to be read in order. Melanie Mel Cooper and Angie DeLaura own a cupcake bakery called Fairy Tale Cupcakes. This year, they decide to enter the Scottsdale Food Festival's pastry contest. Each year, the festival chooses a mystery ingredient that must be incorporated in the recipes, and Mel and Angie are sure they're up to the challenge. When one of the judges is found dead inside a freezer truck, Mel is horrified to learn it was one of her mentors. Once Angie and Mel start asking questions, they find out that they need to discover who the killer is before the killer comes after them. The cast of characters include all of Angie's very Italian family, Mom, Dad, and the brothers, Tate, Angie and Mel's best friend from school, Mel's mom and her uncle, who's a police detective, and Olivia Puckett, a rival baker and a not very nice person. I've had some trouble with some of the books in this series. I read for character development, and the early books aren't what I expected. But this one does a nice job of letting us get to know the people involved. And of course, recipes. Sometimes farcical and sometimes sweet, this book will have you reading to the end to find out who the killer is. The Blight Way by Patrick McManus. If you like McManus's outdoors columns, be aware this series is not the same. This is a mystery story, a police procedural, and a very funny one. Published 2 years after the first Walt Longmire books, they aren't quite a parody of the Craig Johnson books, but I can see some similarities. Bo Tully is the sheriff of Blight County, Idaho. He's a widower and not much of a ladies' man, but he's trying his best with his grade school sweetheart. Tully is called out to the Batum Scraggs Ranch, where they've found the body of a man from Los Angeles. It happens to be Tully's father's birthday, so he brings his father, the former sheriff, along as a birthday present. And what a present it is. They find not one body, but 3. Tully's ethics aren't all that strong, neither are his dad's, but his goal is to catch the killer. There are scenes that are laugh-out-loud funny, but a warning, some of the descriptions can be a bit gory. I started reading his outdoor essays and found him to be hysterical. When I picked up these books, I'd been warned they weren't the same, but I found them to be a good mystery and, of course, funny. I read these books a few years ago and think they hold up to the test of time. Pruning the Dead by Julia Henry. In the fictional town of Goosebush, Lily Jane's family was one of the first residents. She's led an active life until her husband became ill and passed away. Taking care of him and dealing with her grief after isolated her. Her best friend, Tamara, and her husband's former research assistant help her to get out and back into society. As an avid gardener, Lily wants to show off her gardens, but also get back into the social scene. She holds a garden party, inviting all the people she used to know, even her ex-husband and his third wife, Marilee. Later, Lily notices a local park has become overgrown and decides to gather her friends together to create the Garden Squad to clean up the park. Regrettably, someone finds Marilee's dead body in a pile of mulch. Determined to help the inexperienced chief of police, Lily and her friends begin investigating who had it in for Marilee and decided to end her life. If you like gardening, you'll like this book. If you don't like gardening, you'll still like the book. There are gardening tips at the back, and the mystery is fast-paced, and the characters are likable. I found as I've aged, I really enjoy older characters. Fatally Frosted by Jessica Beck. Suzanne Hart is the owner of Donut Hart's Kitchen, a small donut shop located in a refurbished train station in the small, fictional town of April Springs, North Carolina. She lives with her mom, having moved back in after a divorce. She has 2 best friends and a budding romance with the local police inspector, Jake Bishop. Suzanne is asked to participate in a local tour of some of the great kitchens in town. A chef will demonstrate a recipe in the kitchen of each of the homeowners on the tour. Suzanne has decided to try a beignet as the recipe she'll be demonstrating in her friend Marge's kitchen. Unfortunately, before the demonstration has even begun, someone finds the dead body of the tour coordinator outside of Marge's home. Even worse, she's holding a lemon-filled donut from Suzanne's shop. With the help of her friend George, a retired cop, and her ex-husband Max, Suzanne sets out to find out who the killer is and why they've tried to pin the blame on her. I read for characters, and I have to like them. I've heard reviewers call characters they like their friends, and I can see how that might seem. The mystery flows well, and I really liked Suzanne from the beginning, so this is one of my favorites. 2 Bodies for the Price of One by Stephanie Bond. When Carlotta Wren was 18, her biggest worry was what to wear to the fancy dress party. Sadly, her parents skip bail on an embezzling charge, and she is left to raise her younger brother. Now, 10 years later, she works in retail and part-time as a body mover for the local morgue. While her younger brother struggles with a gambling addiction, Carlotta gets caught up in murder. First, Carlotta's identity is stolen when the thief, who looks a lot like her, ends up dead. Did the killer make a mistake? Is Carlotta in danger? For her protection, she ends up moving in with the detective on the case. The detective she has a love-hate relationship with. He's attractive, sexy, but he has his flaws, like trying to find her bail-jumping parents and thinking Carlotta might be a killer. Her ex-fiancé is back in her life, and he nor her part-time boss are too happy with her staying with a good detective. I had a coworker recommend the series as a romance novel. Yes, there is romance, but it really is a mystery story. I had trouble at first liking the main character, but she does grow on you as you read the series. Though some people have compared this to Ivanovich's series, it's much lighter in tone. Malice in Maggoty by Joan Hess. This is an older series. The first book was published in 1987, so no cell phones or fancy technology, but it still makes me laugh. Arlie Hanks, divorced and unemployed, moves from Manhattan to her hometown of Maggoty, rhymes with Raggedy, Arkansas. As the first female police chief, she'd forgotten how boring small-town life can be. She spends her time reading or doing crossword puzzles at the police station or caging meals at her mom's bar and grill. Then an escapee from the state prison comes to town, an EPA official disappears, and a body is discovered in the room number 3 at the local Hot Sheets Motel. That begins her investigation into the denizens of the town. She's known most of them her entire life, but not quite like this. Arlie Hanks is a mature character, and when I first read the series, I was in my 20s. I liked her, but couldn't identify with her. Now that I'm older, I found that the character is much more relatable. Most of the humor is in the crazy characters and Arlie's struggle with her return to her hometown. Someone described it as a clown car. The door opens, and one silly thing after another rolls out. Murder with Peacocks by Donna Andrews, the first in a long series of very funny books. Meg Langslow, an ornamental blacksmith, sublets her studio and moves home to Yorktown, Virginia to help plan 3 weddings. Her best friends, her brothers, and her mother's. If that isn't enough to keep anyone busy, the unpleasant sister-in-law of her mother's fiancé goes missing. When she's found dead on the beach of the York River, Meg's father, a semi-retired physician, decides it's murder. Meg realizes if she's going to keep the wedding preparations on track, she's going to have to find out who the killer is. Helping her father toss 105-pound bags of sand off the bluff over the river, hauling wedding participants to be fitted, and keeping up with the wacky demands of the brides-to-be keeps Meg very busy. Luckily, she's got Michael Watterson, the very handsome drama professor and the son of the local dressmaker, to help her solve the case. I find so many of her books have laugh-out-loud humor. I've read or listened to them multiple times because they leave me feeling happy. Bad things may happen, but you know Meg will solve the case and life will be good again. I also love Meg's notebook that tells me when to breathe. I can truly identify with that. A Pedigree to Die For by Laurien Berenson. Melanie Travis is a single mother and a teacher. It's summer, her boyfriend dumped her, and her summer job at a camp has fallen through. She's packed her 4-year-old off to summer camp when her Aunt Peg calls her and tells her that her late Uncle Max's prize poodle has gone missing. Originally, Aunt Peg wants Melanie to convince her brother Frank to help her find Beau, but Frank refuses to become involved. That leaves Melanie to help out. She finds out that the night Uncle Max passed away, due to a heart attack, his prized stud dog disappears. Aunt Peg is sure there's a connection. So Melanie goes undercover at some of the local dog shows to find out who may have taken the poodle. Melanie and the readers learn a lot about the dog show world. If you've shown a dog, you won't be disappointed with inaccurate information. And if you're not part of the dog show world, there's not too much detail. The search for the missing dog turns into the investigation of Uncle Max's death. Was he really murdered? If so, by whom? I love this series, not just for the dogs, but also because Melanie is a likable character. As the series progresses, the characters grow and change, but not in a bad way. Abby Cooper, Psychic Eye by Victoria Laurie. Abby Cooper has opened a business giving psychic readings. That's her talent. That's her job. Because her love life is going nowhere, she decides to join an online dating service. Her first date is with Dutch, who says he's in security. She finds him attractive, but he's a skeptic, and she decides he's not the one. When one of her clients dies, she's upset she didn't foresee it. She also finds out Dutch, the blind date, is the lead detective in the investigation of her client's death. Now she's a suspect. Abby begins her own investigation. Using her psychic ability, she interviews people and pokes her nose in Dutch's case. This book is the first in the series. Dutch and Abby combine their skills to solve crimes in 16 books, each one very entertaining. I find her description of the psychic ability not as off-putting as I thought I would. I like the character of Abby and her 2 dogs as well. Dutch grows on you as his character is developed. A small warning. There is some bad language, but more importantly, there are parts of this book that are laugh-out-loud funny. Murder Most Sweet by Laura Jensen Walker. Now, I don't usually book talk books the library doesn't own yet, but I was able to read a pre-published copy of this book for my honest review, and that is, this book is funny and entertaining. Theodora Teddy St. John is a breast cancer survivor and author of a cozy mystery series. While attending a book signing for best-selling thriller writer Tavish Bentley, her scarf is stolen. Soon after, when walking her American Eskimo dog Gracie, Teddy finds Bentley's fiancée strangled with her stolen scarf. Oops. A day or so later, Teddy's house is broken into, but she doesn't notice anything stolen. Later, she's confronted by a stalker of Tavish Bentley's. When the stalker is found strangled with another of Teddy's scarves, the police are wondering, has Teddy snapped? Though you may be able to guess who done it, the humor and engaging characters will keep you reading. With a hint of romance, a bit of snark, and even some baking, I hope this book becomes the first in a very long series. I originally chose the book because of the American Eskimo dog, but I really enjoyed the characters and the humor. I would say it's somewhat similar to the Donna Andrews series. This book will be published in September, and I'm looking forward to reading it again. Dead as a Door Knocker by Diane Kelly. Whitney Whitaker has been working as a property manager in Nashville, Tennessee. To save money while she studies for her real estate exam, she lives in her parents' pool house. When one of her clients decides to sell his property, she leaps at the chance to buy and flip it. Unfortunately, as she begins the renovation, she discovers problem after problem. When an electrical fire ignites the house and she and her cat Sawdust barely escape with their lives, she then realizes that she got a bad deal and the previous owner and inspector were in on it. She asks the seller to cover the deductible of her insurance, but then Sawdust finds the seller buried in her flower bed. Now the police think she's the prime suspect. With her brother Buck and her best friend Colette, and of course Sawdust, her cat, Whitney begins investigating who really killed her former client. I love books that include construction and house design, and this one includes that. The only drawback is some of the chapters are from the cat's perspective. If you're a fan of Rita Mae Brown or Lillian Jackson Braun, you'll find it adorable. The Big Chili by Julia Buckley. Lila Drake wants to own her own catering business. She loves to cook and create recipes, but for now, she's stuck being receptionist for her parents' real estate office. On the side, she does cook for others, but she doesn't get the credit. She's fallen into a part-time undercover catering job. When people want to pretend the food is theirs, they call Lila and she whips something up for them. She has several regulars, though she's working on gaining more clients. When her mother drags her to bingo, one of her clients is serving her chili, and she unfortunately watches someone die of poisoning, poisoned by her food. When the police question her, she can't admit to having cooked the chili, so she keeps her secret, afraid it might come back to haunt her. Though Lila's not a suspect, her client is, so Lila starts to ask questions. When her house is targeted with vandalism on Halloween night, she goes to stay with her mom and dad and steps up her snooping. This is a great mystery. I didn't have a clue who the killer was. I like Lila and her family. Lila always has music floating through her head, and I like the idea of each song representing part of the book, almost like a soundtrack. And there's a dog. Mick is her faithful chocolate lab. Even if you're not into cooking, this is a fun mystery. Murder, She Barked by Krista Davis. Holly Miller's out of work, so when her grandmother calls and tells her she's not well and needs help, Holly borrows her boyfriend's car and heads to the Sugar Maple Inn to help her Oma. On the way, she finds a Jack Russell Terrier abandoned at a gas station and sees an explosion just off the road. Once she arrives at the inn, she learns many changes have been made since the last time she'd visited. The inn, in fact the whole town, has become a premier pet resort. As Holly settles in, she discovers that not only has she been chosen by a dog, a cat at the inn adopts her as well. She finds out Oma sprained her ankle jumping out of the way of a car. Another inn employee wasn't so lucky and was killed. With the help of her four-legged friends, Holly begins trying to find out who tried to kill her grandmother. I love the idea of a town dedicated to vacation for pet owners. Holly is a good character, and her Oma is someone I'd love to meet. My only bone of contention is Holly's pets are very exceptional. Throughout the series, Trixie helps quite a bit finding dead bodies and clues alike. This series is for those of us who don't mind a little magic mixed in with our mysteries. Thanks for watching. I hope you found some new titles to try. Give us a call and we'll be happy to place holds for you or offer up other books you might be interested in. Bye.